she abruptly resigned as the host of the show. And to say that I'm quite sad about it.
Hours later, chaos hit Instagram like wildfire. Molly Qerim's sudden exit from First Take wasn't just another career move, it was an emotional bombshell that no one saw coming. Then, out of nowhere, Stephen A. Smith, the man who never breaks character, dropped a few unexpected words that had fans stunned. Let's get into it.
She's hosted First Take for 10 years and elevated the show with her grace, her expertise, incomparable kindness. She's been an enormous part of our success for a decade. Not only did she keep me and many others in line, she did it with dignity, class, kindness, to say the least.
The entire sports world froze when Molly Qerim, the face of First Take for a decade, revealed her shocking departure from ESPN. 10 straight years on top of the debate desk, gone in an instant. Her carefully written Instagram story looked calm on the surface, but the tone? It carried a finality that screamed there was more beneath the surface. She thanked her incredible fans, saying they'd welcomed her into their homes every single morning. But the way she described closing a beautiful chapter had people sensing heartbreak behind the gratitude.
We'll miss her and wish her every blessing on her future. I personally am grateful to her for her friendship.
There was something too clean, too polished, like it had been written to hide what really went down. Every line of that post, the honor of sharing a desk with brilliant voices, 10 unforgettable years, the end of one journey, the start of another, felt like a goodbye drenched in unspoken tension.
Molly is a friend. Molly is a coworker. Molly is somebody that I have leaned on many occasions in the past, as she has done when it comes to me.
Before Molly could even tell her own story, Sports Business Journal dropped the bomb first, announcing with insider precision that the longtime First Take queen was out by the end of 2025. Hours before her post went live, the world already knew, and that alone sent fans spiraling. Just that same morning, she was on air, calm, sharp, and flawless as ever, running the show like she always did. She was keeping Stephen A. Smith in check, throwing questions that sparked heated debates, cutting to breaks with that effortless charm that made her a fan favorite. No one watching that Monday broadcast could have guessed they were witnessing her final act. She looked composed, confident, totally unbothered. But behind that polished smile, something had clearly shifted.
We've been partners on the show for the last 10 years. And a lot of times, some of these things happen and it's just uncomfortable to see. The details, quite frankly, are none of y'all business.
Within hours, the woman who had become the face of ESPN mornings was suddenly done. Viewers were left replaying the broadcast, zooming in on her tone, her glances, her pauses, trying to spot clues they'd missed. Then came ESPN's so-called official response. Burke Magnus, the network's president of content, dropped a clean corporate statement, respectful, professional, and completely hollow. It checked every PR box but dodged every real question. No reason given, no hint of tension, just cold politeness. The kind that screams, something went down and we're not saying what. Burke Magnus made sure to hit all the polite notes, praising Molly Qerim's legacy at ESPN since 2006, calling her the heartbeat of First Take, and crediting her for the show's insane success after she took over in 2015. But the tone felt rehearsed, too neat, too careful, like the kind of tribute you write when you're trying to bury something bigger.
There was a contract negotiation that was going on. ESPN certainly did not want to lose her, but in the end, she made a decision to walk away from the show effective immediately.
The next morning, millions of fans tuned in expecting the usual fireworks, the laughs, the chaos, and those heated showdowns between Stephen A. Smith and whoever dared to challenge him. But what they got instead was pure silence and shock. The studio felt off, quieter, colder, heavier. Stephen A. sat alone at the desk where Molly should have been. No witty banter, no smooth transitions, no trace of her energy. For once, the man known for never losing control looked completely rattled. For anyone paying attention, the cracks were obvious. This wasn't some smooth, pre-planned goodbye or a graceful walk into a well-earned vacation. This was sudden, sharp, and messy. The words coming from both sides felt forced, like they were rushing to cover a situation that exploded behind the scenes. Molly's exit wasn't a countdown to December deal. It was an immediate break that tore through one of ESPN's strongest on-screen duos overnight.
We have to move on as a show. I don't like it. I'm not happy about it because I appreciate her and what she has meant to me, what she has meant to the show, what she has meant to the network, what she's meant to the business. And I'm gonna miss her.
Then came Stephen A. Smith's carefully chosen words, polite on the surface, but layered with meaning. He called her departure unexpected, claiming he was caught off guard. But his delivery gave away something deeper. It was what fans called finely calibrated honesty, saying everything without really saying anything. He praised her as a friend, a colleague, and someone he'd leaned on through 10 years of early mornings, live chaos, and unfiltered debates. He talked about trust, about loyalty, about how they built First Take into a ratings powerhouse that pulled over 500,000 viewers daily. But the more he spoke, the more it sounded like a goodbye wrapped in disappointment. And then came the slip, the one sentence that changed the whole mood.
We could talk about me being the star of my daily television show. We could talk about the contributors that have been stars as well. We can even talk about me doing this show right.
Stephen hinted that her decision wasn't just about moving on. It came after contract talks went sideways. He didn't spell it out, but his tone said enough. Negotiations had apparently gotten tense, emotional even, leaving everyone involved sad and frustrated. Stephen A. finally said what everyone had been whispering for months. This was about money and power. He confirmed there'd been ongoing contract negotiations, and though he chose his words carefully, the truth slipped through every pause. ESPN didn't want to lose Molly, not even close. She wasn't just another host, she was one of their biggest on-air assets, the glue that held First Take together. Sources claimed the network threw serious offers her way, desperate to keep her from walking out that door. But the moment Stephen said, "That's her story to tell," everyone knew what that really meant. There was more, way more. He was holding back, protecting someone or maybe himself, because whatever went down in those talks wasn't clean. Behind his calm tone, fans could sense it.
Everybody aspiring to be their boss, their own boss, and make their own decisions. But in the end, we all have people to answer to. And I know this subject is piggybacking off of what has transpired with Molly's abrupt resignation per se. But it is important to point out that guess what?
Stephen knew the details. The disagreements, the tension, the emotional blow-ups that pushed Molly to her breaking point. Those complexities he mentioned weren't just about contracts. They were about respect, recognition, and who really had power in that studio. And when fans realized he knew but wasn't saying, social media went wild. Timelines filled with theories, everything from secret disputes to gender pay gaps and hidden power struggles. Many said Molly was being underpaid compared to Stephen's massive deal, calling it the final straw. Others believed it was something deeper, personal conflicts or even betrayal behind closed doors. Without her calm, steady hand to balance the energy, First Take felt off balance overnight, like a car missing one of its wheels. But this story was far from over. It was just beginning to unravel. To understand how it all fell apart, we've got to rewind the clock and look at the decade-long bond between Molly Qerim and Stephen A. Smith, a partnership that created thousands of unforgettable hours on live TV and eventually cracked under pressure that had been boiling for years. Back in September 2015, after Carrie Champion's exit, Molly stepped into one of the toughest jobs in sports television, moderating First Take between Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith, two of the loudest, sharpest voices in the game. It wasn't just about keeping the peace, it was about surviving the storm. From day one, Molly brought balance. She added structure, checked facts, and brought a calm, grounded energy that kept the show from spiraling into pure chaos. Meanwhile, Stephen A. delivered the heat. That explosive mix of passion, outrage, and those viral monologues that made First Take a cultural phenomenon. Together, they created the perfect contrast: logic versus fire, calm versus storm. Then came the game changer. Skip Bayless left for FS1 in 2016, leaving Stephen A. as the undeniable face of the show. That's when the real test began. Without Skip, the power dynamic shifted overnight. Molly became the anchor holding everything steady while Stephen's personality grew bigger, bolder, and louder, dominating every segment. Their chemistry wasn't just good, it was record-breaking. During the pandemic, when the world was stuck indoors and desperate for distraction, First Take became a lifeline for sports fans everywhere. Viewership skyrocketed by more than 50%, locking in over 500,000 viewers every single morning. No other ESPN show even came close. The secret? Molly Qerim's steady hand. She wasn't just reading cue cards, she was orchestrating chaos with grace, wit, and timing that kept the show entertaining without turning it into total madness. She added humor when things got heated, empathy when debates got too personal, and the perfect touch of humanity that pulled casual fans in even when they didn't know the stats. She knew exactly when to step in, when to let the stars clash, and when to cut to break before it all exploded. That ability to manage huge personalities while keeping things smooth made her irreplaceable, and fans noticed. Clips of her and Stephen A went viral constantly. The playful teasing, the genuine laughs, and those unspoken moments that showed they weren't just coworkers, they had real chemistry. But not every moment was picture perfect. Every now and then, that tension would break through the surface. Fans still remember that awkward NBA Finals moment. ESPN's cameras accidentally caught Stephen A on his laptop mid-show, and when Molly tried to get him to shut it, he flat out refused. Live on air, the vibe turned icy and viewers could feel it. There were other signs too. Her subtle eye rolls when he'd go off on wild tangents. Her sarcastic smirks when he started promoting yet another side project. She'd often drop her head into her hands like she couldn't believe what he was saying. Funny on camera, but maybe not so funny off it. Meanwhile, Stephen's fame only grew. In 2025, he locked down a monster deal worth over $10 million a year, making him one of the highest paid figures in all of sports media. But what about Molly Qerim? The woman who kept First Take from falling apart every morning while Stephen A. Smith dominated headlines. She was the backbone of the entire operation, the calm voice in a room full of egos, the one who turned chaos into chemistry. Without her, those fiery debates would have just been noise. According to former ESPN insider Marcellus Wiley, Molly's exit wasn't just about timing, it was about respect. He claimed she felt underappreciated and undervalued for years, even though her role was critical to the show's success. She wasn't the one screaming on camera or going viral for wild takes. She was the one making sure it all worked. Reports revealed she was earning around $1 to $1.5 million a year, a solid salary for most people, but tiny compared to the massive deals around her. Wiley flat out said it. Pay gaps absolutely played a role. He argued that Molly deserved the same kind of money as big ESPN names like Mina Kimes and Malika Andrews, who had both secured multi-million-dollar contracts that reflected their true worth to the network. While Stephen A. was pulling in over $10 million annually, Molly, the co-architect of the show's success, was making a fraction of that. Fans quickly started calling it out as a double standard, saying ESPN's priorities were louder voices over loyal workers. Molly's own farewell message was classy but cryptic. She praised the most intelligent, passionate, and hilarious voices in sports, but notably never mentioned the one sitting next to her for the past decade. That silence spoke volumes. Stephen A., on the other hand, called her his work wife and said he was deeply saddened by her leaving. But behind that sympathy, insiders say tension was boiling. Rumors spread that Molly expected Stephen to use his influence, his unmatched power at ESPN, to push for her pay raise during contract talks. But when he didn't, that's when things reportedly snapped. Behind the polished smiles, things were getting messy. Insiders whispered about growing frustrations, creative clashes, power struggles, and the kind of daily tension that builds up after years of working side by side under hot studio lights. Sources said it wasn't one big blow-up, but a pile of small annoyances, professional disagreements, and unspoken resentments that finally tipped the balance. What really made it all suspicious was the timing. On paper, Molly Qerim's contract wasn't set to expire until the end of 2025, and the plan was simple. She'd stay on through the year, help with the transition, and then gracefully step away. That's what ESPN President Burke Magnus had told the press, that everything was on schedule. But suddenly, without warning, she was gone months early. That's when fans knew something didn't add up. Magnus later admitted to The Athletic that he was aware of the acceleration, a vague phrase that raised even more eyebrows. Why was ESPN suddenly fast-tracking her exit if everything was fine? As usual, silence bred speculation. Fans flooded Reddit, X, and YouTube comments, connecting dots between Steven's awkward on-air statement, Molly's sudden quiet, and the eerie lack of any joint farewell. Rumors exploded overnight, from creative disputes to outright betrayal. Then came the biggest twist. Reports that Fox Sports had swooped in, offering Molly around $2 million a year and a main hosting role. No more being the moderator between egos. She'd finally be the one in control. Some insiders even claimed she'd had preliminary talks with Netflix and Amazon Prime Video, both of which were expanding their live sports and talk show content. Molly Qerim's bold move to walk away from ESPN wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. She decided to bet on herself, stepping into free agency territory that few anchors ever dare to enter. Giving up the security of a massive network gig was risky, but it made sense. Her market value had outgrown what ESPN was willing to offer. The industry knew it, the fans knew it, and deep down, even ESPN knew it. Meanwhile, Stephen A. Smith was caught in an awkward spotlight of his own. On camera, he looked genuinely heartbroken, talking about how much he respected Molly and how much she meant to the show. But off camera, it was hard to ignore the uncomfortable truth. He was the biggest winner of the system that pushed her out. His $10 million deal, his multiple shows, his celebrity status, all of it made him untouchable. And whether he meant to or not, that power imbalance left Molly standing in his shadow, her contributions undervalued, and her loyalty unrewarded. So while Steven mourned the loss of his longtime co-host, fans couldn't help but notice the irony. The man most hurt by her exit was also the one thriving under the same system that made her feel invisible. Stephen A. finally admitted it. He did know more than he was saying, but even then, he refused to give any details about Molly's departure, claiming he wanted to respect her privacy. That silence created a whole new storm. Some fans accused him of protecting ESPN's image at her expense, while others argued he was simply staying loyal to someone he still cared about. Either way, it made things way messier. That moment exposed just how complicated their relationship had become behind the scenes. They weren't just co-workers anymore. They were tangled in years of loyalty, frustration, and blurred lines between friendship and business. And now ESPN was scrambling to fill the massive hole her exit left behind. Molly's sudden resignation forced the network into panic mode. Their top morning show was missing its anchor, and the entire sports media world was watching every move they made. For ESPN, this wasn't just about finding a replacement, it was about proving they could survive without the woman who gave First Take its balance and charm. Within days, Burke Magnus announced a 30 to 45-day audition process to find the new moderator. He called it methodical, but everyone knew it was desperation in disguise. The network needed to move fast, but not too fast, because this decision would define the future of First Take. Dozens of potential hosts were reportedly lined up to test with Stephen A., but one name instantly set the internet on fire: Joy Taylor. On paper, she looked perfect. She'd already proven herself on FS1's The Herd with Colin Cowherd, holding her own against strong personalities and bringing both intellect and charisma to the table. But when Stephen A. heard her name, according to insiders, his reaction was explosive. He allegedly said, "Hell no." People close to the situation claimed he didn't want anyone who might challenge his dominance on set. To some, it sounded like he wanted chemistry. To others, control. That comment revealed everything. The real problem wasn't just finding a new host, it was finding someone bold enough to match Steven's intensity. That rumored veto power of Stephen A. Smith opened a whole new can of worms. If he could allegedly block potential co-hosts like Joy Taylor, then how much influence did he really have behind the scenes? Fans started asking the uncomfortable question: if he could control hiring decisions, did he also have pull over who got paid what? The whispers only grew louder when former ESPN star Marcellus Wiley doubled down on his claim, saying Steven's refusal to back Molly during her contract talks played a major role in her decision to walk. He hinted that Steven had the influence to help her secure the raise she deserved, but chose to stay silent instead. That silence, Wiley said, spoke volumes. Meanwhile, ESPN's hunt for a replacement turned into a full-blown audition frenzy. Within weeks of Molly's exit, a parade of familiar faces and rising stars entered the mix, each with their own strengths, flaws, and fan followings. Shea Pepler-Cornett, one of ESPN's SportsCenter hosts, quickly emerged as a top internal contender. Sharp, confident, and already familiar with the network's tone, she seemed like the safest choice. But she wasn't the only one. Peter Schrager from NFL Network stepped in for a few guest appearances and instantly brought energy, charisma, and top-tier football insight. Fans loved his chemistry with Steven, though some worried his more analytical approach clashed with First Take's explosive hot take formula. And then there was Colleen Wolfe from NFL Network, an outsider with a fresh, unpredictable edge. She had interviewing chops, a natural wit, and a calm professional presence that reminded some viewers of Molly's early days. The challenge for ESPN was clear. They didn't just need a moderator. They needed someone who could walk the tightrope Molly mastered for a decade. Someone who could keep Stephen A's fire alive while reshaping the show for a new era. But every potential replacement seemed to highlight one truth that no one at ESPN wanted to admit. Molly wasn't just another host. She was the balance, the tone, the glue. And now, even with all these big names in the running, the show suddenly felt hollow. Like a stage missing its leading act. In the weeks that followed Molly Qerim's shocking exit, ESPN learned a hard lesson. You don't realize how valuable someone is until they're gone. Early reports showed ratings dipped by 5 to 10% right after she left, a clear sign that her presence wasn't just routine, it was essential. Fans tuned in hoping to see who'd replace her. And while curiosity brought a small rebound, the energy just wasn't the same. Something vital had disappeared. Molly's ability to control the chaos, keep egos balanced, and make fiery debates watchable was gone. And suddenly, Stephen A. Smith was struggling to keep the magic alive. His on-air tone was respectful, saying he appreciated her contributions. But behind the scenes, whispers said otherwise. Insiders claimed he didn't support her when it mattered most, especially during those tense contract talks. It was a contradiction he couldn't publicly address without breaking his promise to keep her privacy intact. What played out next was more than just TV drama. It was a masterclass in how fragile stability can be in the sports media world. Molly had done everything right, worked her way up, earned respect, handled live chaos like a pro, and helped build First Take into ESPN's crown jewel. She wasn't just part of the success, she helped create it. Her humor, composure, and chemistry with Stephen A. gave the show its heartbeat. Without her, the conversations felt colder, the transitions clunkier, and the laughs forced. As guest hosts cycled through, it became painfully clear just how irreplaceable Molly really was. And that's where the real debate began. Was Molly's departure an act of empowerment or erasure? Did she take control of her own future, walking away from a system that undervalued her? Or was she pushed out by the same corporate machine she helped elevate? The truth probably lies somewhere in between, a messy mix of ambition, frustration, and timing. But one thing's certain, Molly Qerim's absence left a hole that no replacement could instantly fill. Her energy, her balance, her quiet command of the room. It wasn't something you could audition or replicate. Fans are seeing it firsthand now. The difference between someone doing a job and someone owning it. And as ESPN scrambles to restore its rhythm, Molly's name keeps trending. Not because she's gone, but because everyone suddenly realizes just how much she brought to the table. So what do you think? Was Molly Qerim's exit a power move or a silent protest? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Whose side are you on in this behind-the-scenes war? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more explosive updates. And as always, we'll see you in the next one.